All right, so now it's time for our Call in the Ring segment for this week. Adam, explain how this goes.
So, as you know, if you've been listening to us the last few weeks, the Call in the Ring segment is something different every week. So this week, I was tasked to come up with something to talk about, and I decided to go a little on the creative route. Um, I take a look at successful storylines recently, like Tony Storm and Mariah May, all about Mariah, or from a couple of years ago, where John Moxley and CM Punk, apparently much to CM Punk's ignorance, took a lot of elements from Rocky 3 and worked that into their storyline. Um, and so I was like, okay, well, what else can translate? So I tasked the both of us to come up with one piece of art. Now, that could range from a movie, a TV show, a play, a song, an actual piece of art, uh, a book, anything. Something from and it could be as obscure or as mainstream as we wanted, but to come up with one piece of art and from there extrapolate a wrestling storyline from that, drawing inspiration from that piece of art. Uh, as somebody who, uh, as people who were in e-feds, this was kind of our bread and butter at one point. I figured it was something that we could go back to, drawing on inspiration from pop culture. So, Aaron, do you want to go first?
No, you go first this week. I went first last week.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So, uh, mine is probably a little bit more obscure. Like, it's a little niche. The thing with me is that as you and I were talking about this actually earlier, off of the recording, about how my background is, from an ethnic standpoint, is around half Irish. I've got uh, Irish on both my mom and dad's sides, and it's definitely in my genes because every time March rolls around, I can't help but listen to anything but Irish music for like the whole month. Even past St. Patrick's Day, it's like nope, March is Irish month. So I listen to a lot of like Dubliners and Irish Rovers and stuff like that in the month of March. And I actually got my first exposure to that while I was doing the Disney College program. There is a bar that to this day is still there in the what used to be known as the downtown Disney Marketplace. I can't remember what they call it now, Disney Square or something like that. But
Yeah.
it's called Raglan Road, and the actual physical bar there was imported from Ireland. It is over 100 years old. Like
Wow.
and it goes like halfway through the whole bar, and they serve Irish themed food, and they have live music from Irish bands like every day of the week. And every 20-30 minutes or so, there'll be a girl who stands up on a little platform and does a little hard shoe step dance number, which is great. And I remember walking in there that first time, and I immediately felt like I was home. Like it was just in my genes. I've never been to Ireland. It's on my bucket list, but I immediately felt comfortable there. I immediately felt like this was where I belonged. So I'm very connected to that side of me in maybe kind of a superficial way because I've never been to the motherland, so to speak. I don't know like a lick of Irish beyond slouch it, but like, uh, but I'm very in touch with that to a certain degree. And so I chose to take one of my favorite Irish songs. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's several versions of the song, but the Black Velvet Band. If you don't know it, I could sing it for you. I don't think you'd want to hear that, but basically, it's the story of a guy who's apprenticed in it. versions vary, but the one I'm using is takes place in Belfast, and guy is just walking around town. And he sees this pretty girl that he likes that's wearing her hair up with the black velvet bands, and she basically pickpockets a guy's watch and places it on him for no discernible reason really other than to troll him. And then because he's been framed for this theft, he gets sent to Van Diemen's Land, which is an old-timey name for what we now know as Tasmania, a little island on the south coast of Australia, which was a penal colony.
Okay.
So you can look up the lyrics for yourself. I'm not gonna torture you with my awful singing, but I took that and I crafted a storyline around it. So the rules for this were we could have it set in any promotion using any set of talent that we wanted. So I've decided to take the opportunity to use as many Irish wrestlers as I can think of. that makes sense. So this story will start on April 21st, 2025, the Raw after WrestleMania 41. As is traditional in the immediate aftermath of WrestleMania, we have surprise call-ups and debuts in the main roster. We see the call-up of Chase University from NXT as Andre Chase and Duke Hudson beat the Creed brothers in a competitive match that sees them roll up Julius for the win after the referee's distracted when Chad Gable gets into an argument and nearly strikes Thea Hale at ringside. Women's Tag Team Champions, the Unholy Union, who regained their belts, their tag belts in a triple threat match at night 2 of WrestleMania, pitting Zoe Stark to unseat Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Immediately dropped the belts to the returning Iconics.
Okay.
This will make sense. This
All
will
right.
make sense. That following Friday, you see the debut of the newly signed David Finlay from New
Okay.
Japan, Fit Finlay's kid. He actually has his younger son is actually in NXT, but he's a little green, so I decided to go with David here.
Okay.
He debuts as a babyface in Irish-themed gear, quickly dispatches of Austin Theory with an STO backbreaker that he uses. He's now renamed that the Irish Sweepstakes.
Okay.
The next Monday on Raw, Paul Levesque makes the announcement that the following week, the WWE Draft will return, and Raw will get 3 draft picks for every 2 that SmackDown gets, reflecting the roster size and show run times, normal stuff. Following Friday on SmackDown, David Finlay defeats Giovanni Vinci in another quick match with the same finish. Cuts a promo after the match. For those of you who don't know, I'm the son of Fit Finlay. Just like my dad, I love to fight. But more importantly, I'm here to carry on the legacy of my father. And he holds up the shillelagh that he brings with him to the ring, implying that it was his dad's. And to join the list of other great superstars of Irish origin. I may have been raised in America, but my heart and soul are from the Emerald Isle, and that means whichever brand ultimately gives me a shot and drafts me won't be disappointed. Noticeable is his lack of Irish accent. That will be played later. Oh, also, I'm working under the assumption, and this is taking a huge leap of fiction, but I'm working under the assumption that the Irish unification of 2024 actually does happen. It won't, but it should, because it's a Star Trek reference and it'd be really, really funny. And it's long overdue anyway. So for the sake of this, please assume that Northern Ireland and Ireland are now one country
again. Okay.
That's the only way any of this really makes sense. So Monday, Raw. In the course of draft proceedings, Raw drafts Indy Hartwell, Grayson Waller, and United States champion LA Knight, among others. Friday, in the course of draft proceedings, SmackDown drafts Lyra Valkyria, brand new Intercontinental champion Sheamus, and former World Tag Team champions Finn Balor and JD McDonough, leaving the rest of the Judgment Day behind and effectively breaking up the group.
Yay!
David Finlay defeats the debuting JD McDonough in a back-and-forth match. McDonough tries to cheat while Balor distracts the referee, but Finlay catches McDonough's foot on a low blow attempt and throws him into Balor on the apron, catching him with a schoolboy on a rebound off the ropes for a 1-2-3. Balor hits the ring to try to avenge his tag team partner, but Finlay powders, winking at Balor as he walks up the ramp. Elsewhere, Lyra Valkyria defeats B-Fab in her debut on the Blue brand fairly handily with a frog splash. And Sheamus cuts a promo saying it's good to be in a new environment where there are new bangers to have and new arses to kick. Following SmackDown, JD McDonough demands Nick Aldis give him a rematch against Finlay, which he's granted on the condition that Finn Balor is banned from ringside. Balor appears on the stage to cause a distraction during Finlay's match with McDonough, which is not technically at ringside, which almost cost Finlay the match to a close schoolboy roll-up, but gets up and counters the devil inside into a reverse waistlock roll-up for the victory. This time, Balor makes it to the ring in time and helps McDonough beat down Finlay for his audacity, the final shot coming from Balor wielding Finlay's only shillelagh. Balor grabs the mic and challenges Finlay to a match the next night at Backlash, which Aldis later makes official and leaves with Finlay's shillelagh. I'm assuming all these pay-per-views are going to be on Saturdays. I don't know that. They haven't released their schedule, but other than SummerSlam, they've released SummerSlam for 2025. That was Saturday, May 17th, Backlash. David Finlay beats Finn Balor in around 15 minutes. Balor looks to have things in hand towards the end when McDonough, still sour about his 2 losses and looking to get at least one shot in personally, grabs Finlay's shillelagh and insists on trying to bash Finlay's head in with it. Balor looks annoyed but gives in and ties Finlay up in the ropes to hold him and initiates an argument with the referee. McDonough winds up, but Finlay gets out in time, kicking McDonough in the stomach and bashing him with the shillelagh instead when McDonough drops it. He turns around into a small package from Balor, but escapes, hits a series of European uppercuts, a fireman's carry drop onto the ropes, a German suplex into the turnbuckles, and an Irish sweepstakes to pick up the win. He grabs his shillelagh and celebrates on the ramp as Balor seeds in the ring. Following Monday on Raw, Adam Pearce announces the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments will once again be held in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia in 3 weeks' time. I know don't like to talk about Saudi Arabia, but it plays into it. Sorry, I'm going to whirl with it. The show will feature both the semifinals and finals of each tournament, and the winners get shots at their respective brand's top titles at SummerSlam, as was the case the year before. Each brand will host one side of the bracket so that the finals will guarantee a Raw versus SmackDown finals. To that end, this week will feature qualifying matches for the tournament, and the next week will feature quarterfinal matchups. Qualifying for the tournaments for the Raw side are Braun Breaker, Chad Gable, Pete Dunne, Sami Zayn, The Miz, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, and United States Champion LA Knight for King, and Dakota Kai, Michin, Raquel Rodriguez, Shayna Baszler, Zelina Vega, Io Sky, and Liv Morgan for Queen. SmackDown that week, David Finlay qualifies for the King of the Ring tournament by beating Tonga Loa. The other qualifiers are Jacob Fatu, Johnny Gargano, Kevin Owens, Andrade, Braun Strowman, Logan Paul, and Randy Orton. Yeah, I'm making Logan Paul show up for work. Queen of the Ring tournament qualifiers feature Bayley, Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, Natalya, Tegan Nox, and Lyra Valkyria. Raw, Braun Breaker, Sami Zayn, Damian Priest, and LA Knight all advance, as do Michin, Baszler, Sky, and Morgan. SmackDown, Finlay beats Paul to advance. I did that for you. I wanted him to beat Paul specifically. Joining Andrade, Orton, and Fatu in the quarterfinals. Valkyria beats LeRae to advance, joining Green, Cargill, and Belair. Raw, Sami Zayn and LA Knight advance to the semifinals on the male side, and Baszler and Sky do so on the female side. And SmackDown, Finlay and Orton advance to the semifinals on the male side, and Valkyria and Cargill do on the female side. King and Queen of the Ring. Finlay goes 20 minutes with Orton after a competitive match, but ultimately loses. Orton shakes his hand afterwards and puts the match over even more by ultimately losing in the finals to Sami Zayn. Lyra Valkyria beats Cargill by the skin of her teeth, but loses handily to Baszler in the finals, choked out in under 5 minutes to mark her second straight Queen of the Ring finals appearance, but also her second straight loss. SmackDown. Randy Orton opens the show in the ring with a mic in his hand. You know, I've done pretty much all there is to do in WWE, he explains. I've won Royal Rumbles, I'm a Grand Slam champion, but the one thing I've never been able to accomplish that I'd like to before I eventually retire is become King of the Ring. And I was close. This close, he says. But I couldn't get the job done against Sami Zayn when it counted. But you know what? I'm not even mad. In my younger years, I would have been incensed, but I'm not even mad because I know the reason that I couldn't achieve my goal was because of the first match I had that night against Dave Finlay. So I wanted to invite him out here, look him in the eye like a man, and congratulate him. Finley comes out cautiously. I watched the show, he explains. I grew up in the business and I've been a fan for literal decades. I know what happens here, Randy. You're going to shake my hand and drop me with an RKO, aren't you? Randy smirks and follows up, well, if you think that's what I'm going to do, then why are you out here? Because I'm Irish, Finley retorts, and we Irish face things head on. We don't back down from anything, so if you want to do this, we can do this. But I prefer to be upfront about it. Orton takes a long look at Finley to consider what he says, then holds out his hand anyway. Finley sighs and takes it, but that RKO never comes. Orton just walks up the ramp, smiling and clapping, leaving Finley in the ring, amused. Elsewhere on the show, Sheamus finds Nick Aldis backstage and expresses that he was so impressed by Finley and Orton's match that he wants to see it again. He's willing to put a shot at his Intercontinental title on the line to the winner at Money in the Bank. Aldis agrees that given their placement in the King of the Ring tournament, they are logical top contenders for the belt, and he agrees to the stipulations. He makes the match for the following week. In the SmackDown next week, in the main event of that show, Finley counters an RKO and catches Orton with the Irish sweepstakes to win the shot at Sheamus. Afterwards, Sheamus, who was on commentary during the match, enters the ring to congratulate his future opponent, but their handshake quickly turns tense as they stare into each other's eyes with competitive intent to close the show. Following week on SmackDown, Finley and Sheamus have a contract signing for their IC title match at Money in the Bank. Finley talks about what a privilege it is to be fighting for a belt his father was unable to win, and what an honor it is to be facing a champion on the level of his fellow Celt. Sheamus looks a tad perturbed, but he says he too is honored to be facing a fellow Irishman for the title. Should be a good one, fella. They both put pen to paper without incident, but Finley beams and works the crowd as Sheamus gives them the side eye. Lyra Valkyria on that show wins a number one contendership match against Bianca Belair to face WWE Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton at Money in the Bank. Next week on SmackDown, Finley and Valkyria beat Sheamus and Stratton in mixed tag action when Valkyria takes advantage of miscommunication between Sheamus and Stratton that plagued the whole match. Sheamus drops off the apron in disgust with how Stratton has been ordering him around the whole match, and the momentary distraction is enough for Valkyria to wrap her up in a small package for the victory, giving her and Finley momentum into the premium live event. Afterwards, Finley and Valkyria share a flirtatious glance at each other as they back up the ramp. Money in the Bank, Finley and Sheamus are given 25 minutes to kick the stuffing out of one another, with Finley finally getting the better of Sheamus by ducking a brogue kick, only to hit one of his own, and follow that up with the Irish sweepstakes for the victory and the Intercontinental Championship. He celebrates all the way up the ramp as Sheamus looks distraught in the ring. Elsewhere, Valkyria nearly defeats Stratton to win the Women's Championship, but ultimately fails when she hits her head on an exposed turnbuckle out of view of the referee, setting up the prettiest moonsault ever for the pinfall loss. Following SmackDown, Finley has mic time to address the crowd and expresses his disbelief that he's already Intercontinental Champion 3 months after debuting. Sheamus' music hits and he approaches the ring, but Finley cuts him off before he can say anything. Hey, you know what? Before you come out here and say your piece, I want to thank you for the opportunity you gave me to achieve my dreams, he said. The fact is, you set this up. You went to Nick Aldis on my behalf and allowed the opportunity to have the match with you in the first place. So thank you. Sheamus looks annoyed, but is cut off again before he can retort. So from one Irishman to another, I am so grateful. Thank you so much, he says sincerely. Sheamus answers quickly, knowing he could be cut off again any second now. You're welcome. And you know what? Initially, I was kind of upset. After all, the Intercontinental title was the last piece of my Grand Slam journey, and it took literal years for me to make it happen finally. But you're right. The reason I'm standing here without the title I worked so hard for so long is because of my own actions. So I can't be mad at you, fella. I can only be mad at myself. Out of nowhere, Sheamus tags him with the brogue kick. But that doesn't mean I'm going to take it out on myself, he says to the barely conscious Finley. No, you're still going to get that bit. So here's the thing, Sunshine. I've got a rematch clause. It's going to be you and me in a rematch for the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam. He throws the mic at the down Finley's head and walks back up the ramp. Later in the show, Doctors are checking on Finley's condition, making sure he's not concussed after the microphone shot. When Lyra Valkyria walks into the room to console him, he says he's okay. She says she's glad because she felt they had really good chemistry last week in their mixed tag match and wanted to know if he wanted to explore that chemistry further in the future. He smiles and said he'd like that. He ends the segment by complimenting her black hair tie. Is that velvet? He asks. Yeah, do you like it? Yeah, it suits you. She smiles and leaves, and the segment ends. Next SmackDown, still wearing the black velvet headband, Valkyria accompanies Finley to his non-title match against Andrade, which he wins in a back-and-forth 15-minute contest. Finley wins by pinfall after the Irish sweepstakes. Valkyria is thrilled afterwards and makes a show of holding Finley's hand as they walk back up the ramp. Following week, Finley accompanies Valkyria to her triple threat match against Chelsea Green and Bayley, with the winner getting a shot at Stratton at SummerSlam. She gives him her headband to hold during the match since he seems to like it so much. The match ends in a no contest when Sheamus comes to the ring and initiates a brawl with Finley that spills into the ring. The chaos causes the ref to throw out the whole thing. The brawl ends with officials tearing Sheamus and Finley apart, with Sheamus grinning ear to ear as the show goes to commercial. After all three women entered his office to plead their case, Nick Aldis makes a ruling that since the match ended without a winner, Chelsea Green, Bayley, and Lyra Valkyria will all face off against Tiffany Stratton in a fatal four-way match with the women's title on the line at SummerSlam. This seems to satisfy all of them, but Stratton, also in Aldis' office, who throws a hissy fit. Following SmackDown, Sheamus makes quick work of Carl Anderson in about 4 minutes, then gets on the mic to challenge Luke Gallows on the spot. He beats him handily, too, in about 6 minutes. He gets back on the mic and speaks directly to Finley. I know you're somewhere in the back watching, listening, he says. I want you to take a good long look at what I did to your buddies here. I know you all run the same club, but make no mistake about it. If you were thinking about calling on them for help, he says, grabbing a chair from ringside, I don't think you've got the luck of the Irish helping you out, fella. He beats the crap out of Gallows and Anderson until a gaggle of referees comes and stops him. Only then does Finley come out, being held back by more officials to explain his tardiness, to confront Sheamus. They brawl, but are once again pulled apart with SummerSlam on the horizon. And now I need some water. All right, SummerSlam night 1, because it's 2 nights now. Sheamus and Finley have a very physical match where Finley retains the Intercontinental Championship, but only by the skin of his teeth. At one point in the contest, Sheamus is in control on the outside of the ring and confronts Lyra Valkyria, who had accompanied Finley to the match, as she goes to check on him. He doesn't lay hands on her, but does lock eyes with her for an uncomfortably long time. The finish comes when Sheamus sets up for the bro kick from across the ring, but once again locks eyes with Valkyria for just long enough for Finley to dodge the kick when it comes and hits an acid drop, here renamed the Irish Step Dance, for the surprise victory. SummerSlam Night 2. Lyra Valkyria loses her bid to win the Women's Championship when she's a fraction of a second too late to prevent Bayley from pinning Green after a rose plant. She's visibly frustrated afterwards, cursing her bad luck and stopping just short of throwing a fit. Following SmackDown, the show opens with Lyra Valkyria in Nick Aldis' office pleading her case for one more shot at the women's title. Before the GM can answer, Tiffany Stratton barges in and demands a rematch based on the fact that she wasn't the one pinned. Aldis said they'll both have a shot at getting a title opportunity when they compete along with the rest of the SmackDown Women's Division in a Battle Royal in tonight's main event to determine who will go on to face new champion Bayley at an as-yet indeterminate future date. The women stared each other down as the show rolls into the opening music. Later, Finley is seen backstage with Valkyria as she does some shadow boxing in the hallway. He assures her that if she wants him at ringside for support, he's ready, willing, and able. In truth, I've become rather fond of you, he says. She blushes, smiles, and sheepishly agrees. The main event takes up the last half hour of the show, and Finley is on guest commentary for most of it, standing and cheering every time Valkyria eliminates someone, which happens 3 or 4 times. Stratton and Valkyria are the final 2 combatants standing when all is said and done, and Stratton sends Valkyria over the ropes, though she manages to catch herself from falling and stands on the apron. As Finley once again stands to cheer her on, Sheamus appears in the front row of the crowd to attack him from behind, choking him at the announce table. Valkyria is shocked and instinctually sits down on the apron as if to intervene, though doesn't because she would be eliminated, but hangs onto the top rope in doing so, kind of accidentally eliminating Stratton when she charges and falls over the pulled down rope and falls to the floor. Finley manages to break the chokehold and enters the crowd to fight Sheamus all the way back to the back as a confused and distraught Valkyria is declared the winner. Following SmackDown, Nick Aldis calls Finley into his office and informs him that Sheamus had demanded one more match with him. He said that while he's made the match for Clash at the Castle, Belfast, he's allowing Finley to choose whether or not he wants to put up the Intercontinental title, given he's already beaten him with the belt on the line twice now. Finley accepts and agrees to the title shot on one condition. He's allowed to have his father corner him for the contest. Aldis smiles, accepts, and tells him he'll inform Sheamus immediately. Later on, Sheamus beats Apollo Crews with a brogue kick in under 5 minutes, then gets on the mic. I made a mistake last time of not giving you my undivided attention in the ring, Finley. It's a mistake I don't intend to repeat. So you want your doddering old pa at ringside in Belfast? Fine by me, fella. It'll just serve as more motivation for me to focus on beating you, knowing I can embarrass you in front of him, in his hometown, in front of his countrymen. So let's do this right and sign on the dotted line next week, shall we? He throws the mic down and leaves the ring as the announcers confirm to the viewers that next week's episode will feature another contract signing for the match between Sheamus and Finley. Next SmackDown, Lyra Valkyria accompanies David Finley and gives him a kiss before his opening contest against Johnny Gargano. After a back-and-forth match that goes about 15 minutes, Finley eventually gets the pin with the Irish sweepstakes. Coming back from commercial, we catch up with Finley and Valkyria as they walk back in the locker room area. She asks him to accompany her in her upcoming match against Candice LeRae, like she did for him just now. But he tells her he has to shower up and get properly dressed for his contract signing, and he just won't be able to make it in time. He apologizes and kisses her again, telling her she's got it under control, that he has to hurry up or he won't make it in time. He closes the door behind him, leaving her disappointed. Lyra Valkyria wins her match against LeRae, but there are several times where LeRae comes agonizingly close to stealing the upset win from her, to the point where even as she heads back up the ramp after her victory, she looks shaken. The contract signing goes about as well as these things tend to do. Sheamus signs first and immediately tosses the contract to Finley without saying a word. Finley replies, "What? Nothing to say? You've been hounding me for all this time, attacking me at nearly every opportunity, and now all of a sudden you're, what, nonchalant about this now? What gives?" All Sheamus retorts, annoyed, is, "Just sign it, will ya?" Resigned, Finley acquiesces. He gets up, shakes Aldis' hand, and leaves the ring, and only then does Sheamus say something else. "You don't know it yet, fella, but signing this was the worst mistake of your life. I'm going to embarrass you in Belfast and out you for the fraud you are. I guarantee it." With that, he flips the table out of spite and leaves the ring through the crowd. SmackDown, the go-home show sees Finley and Valkyria team up to take on Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. The husband and wife team actually take the win here with when Sheamus appears at the top of the entrance ramp. He does nothing but observe, but it's enough for Finley to get distracted on the apron and miss the hot tag that Valkyria was desperately looking for. LeRae hits the wicked stepsister, and it's over. Finley realizes all too late and goes back to apologize to Valkyria while Sheamus laughs and walks to the back. Clash at the Castle, Belfast. Sheamus regains the Intercontinental Championship in about 25 minutes. The finish comes when JD McDonough and Finn Balor run down to the ring after a rough bump to try to screw over the younger Finley, but the elder Finley drives them off and chases them away from ringside with the shillelagh. As David gets up to goes to set up Sheamus for the Irish step dance, however, Lyra Valkyria grabs a hold of Finley's legs as he steps off the ropes, allowing Sheamus to reverse the move into the white noise. As the referee finally comes to, Sheamus hits the brogue kick for the win and the belt. Valkyria looks conflicted at the end, and Balor and McDonough return with Finley's shillelagh, a trophy from the fallen elder Finley, who the camera shows beaten and bloodied in the back hallway of the arena. Following SmackDown, the show opens with the women's title shot Lyra Valkyria was promised against Bayley. She wins the belt after about 18 minutes of back and forth action when JD McDonough and Finn Balor come out from nowhere to distract the referee and Sheamus slips Valkyria the shillelagh. She hesitates for a moment but ultimately uses it, clocking Bayley with it and ditching the foreign object before the official turns back around to count the 1, 2, 3. The show comes back from from commercial, and Valkyria, McDonough, Balor, and Sheamus are all standing in the ring together. That men, now noticeably wearing black velvet armbands that match Valkyria's headband. Sheamus grabs a mic and explains their motives. David, this is all your own making. You see, you came in here with this highly talented talent. You spent a lot of time on the Indies, made it big in Japan, and then you finally find yourself here. That's all well and good. In fact, you're a hell of a talent. And honestly, I respect you for all of that. What really, he says, gesturing to his compatriots, couldn't abide was this whole fake Irish thing you've got going on. Sure, your pa's famously from Belfast, but you're not Irish. Not really. You were raised in America. Hell, I did some digging and discovered you were born in Germany, of all places. Fact is, despite wearing all Irish colors and naming all your moves for the aisle and carrying this around, you don't truly know the first thing about being Irish. Because just like I bet a bunch of these loser fake Irish fans here's ancestors, their parents up and left Ireland when things got tough. Ours, though, our ancestors stayed put. They dug in the dirt and lived through oppression and damn near slavery at the hands of English oppressors. JD, Finn, and I lived in Ireland through the Troubles, for God's sake. Meanwhile, you were here, comfortable in your American home, shielded from the very things that made us who we are as a people. You're not Irish. You're a pretender, and frankly, we just got sick of it. Finley finally comes out on the stage, looking to go at it with his accusers, but is immediately accosted by ring officials and security guards. Sheamus laughs and continues. Now, you may be wondering why you're being held back in this moment. You see, before you signed the contract for our match at Clash at the Castle, I made sure to have my lawyers add a clause in there that stated if you lost the match, you'd be banished from SmackDown. And we couldn't have done it without your pretty Colleen here. So desperate was she not to waste her last chance at the Women's Championship that she made a deal with us for it to make it happen at your expense. So take him away, boys. And irate Finley is carried off by security as the three men sing together. Would give you excited from the nation to be spent far away from the land, far away from your friends and companions, betrayed by the Black Velvet Band. The last line of which they point to their armbands. The Black Velvet Band is what they'll refer to themselves as a unit from here on out. Noticeably, though, Valkyria doesn't join in the revelry, instead looking on in concern, but not doing much else. Flash forward about a month on Raw. After being missing for TV for nearly a month, General Manager Adam Pearce announces that he's reached a deal with David Finlay, and although he may be exiled from SmackDown, Raw will welcome a former Intercontinental Champion with open arms, starting on next week's show, where he'll be a guest on the Grayson Waller effect. Raw. Grayson Waller hosts the debuting David Finlay, who expresses frustration that he can't get any satisfaction over what's being done to him. Waller pushes his button, saying, yeah, but didn't they kind of have a point, though? I mean, you claim to be Irish, but as far as I can tell, you seem to be not as Irish as McDonald's. Finlay gets in his face and headbutts him, sending him careening over his talk show host table before leaving the ring in disgust. Next week, David Finlay beats Grayson Waller by disqualification when he hits the Irish sweepstakes on him, but Austin Theory breaks up the pinfall. They beat him down after the bell and leave him laying after Theory hits him with A-Town down. The next week, Finlay approaches Adam Pearce and asks for another match with Waller, but Pearce says he isn't really feeling like handing out favors like his SmackDown counterpart does. Here on Raw, you've got to up the ante a little bit to catch the general manager's attention. An exasperated Finlay says he'll face both Waller and Theory together. He doesn't care. Pearce is satisfied and makes A-Town Down Under versus David Finlay in a handicap match for the following week's Raw. Following week, A-Town Down Under defeat David Finlay in a handicap match after the numbers game proves too great for Finlay to overcome. Also, they cheat. Waller hits Finley with a chair behind the referee's back that allows Theory to connect with A-Town down for the win. Afterwards, the former SmackDown Tag Team Champions really rub it in by setting up the chair over Finley's body and conducting a mock interview as they would on the set of the Grayson Waller effect before leaving him to his misery. Next week, Finley opens the show and addresses the crowd. You know, things haven't been going my way lately. Seems everywhere I go, I have a target on my back, and I'm getting pretty tired of it. Last week was a wake-up call, though. E-Town Down Under, you showed me that I might not belong here after all. Not if I can't beat you two clowns. So how about we run it back tonight? And if I can't find a way to beat you two, I'll just leave WWE altogether. How does that sound? Waller and Theory answer via Titantron and accept his challenge. Easy peasy. Later on, Finley comes down to the ring to meet A-Town Down Under, but stops halfway down the ramp with the mic in hand. Okay, so the deal was that I needed to find a way to beat you or I'd quit, right? And then you two accepted. But the thing is, I didn't say this was another handicap match, did I? What if the way I beat you two is to find a partner to help me do it? Seth Rollins' music hits as he's announced as Finley's partner in this tag team match, which takes all of about 3 minutes as Rollins and Finley handily defeat the cowardly heels and send them packing. Rollins later goes up to Adam Pearce and personally recommends Finley for the Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series team, and Pearce says he'll consider it. Okay, next week on Raw, Adam Pearce decides to put David Finley in the last qualifying match to represent Raw in a traditional 5-on-5 elimination match against Team SmackDown this coming Saturday. His opponent, The Miz. If he wins, he joins Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, United States Champion Ludwig Kaiser, and Drew McIntyre on the team to face Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura, and all three members of the Black Velvet Band. Finley, now knowing that he'll get a chance at revenge against the Black Velvet Band after all, steamrolls The Miz in 4 minutes to gain the spot on Team Raw. At Survivor Series, Team SmackDown defeats Team Raw. The Black Velvet Band avoid any and all contact with David Finley anytime he tags in until their partners are eliminated and they're left with no choice. Finley works each one of them over in turn but doesn't eliminate any of them, instead falling victim to the numbers game and some timely uncaught cheating in the end. The sole survivors, the Black Velvet Band. Raw. Finley is involved in a mini tournament to determine the number one contendership for the United States title. He seems distracted through most of the bout, kicking himself for not getting his proper revenge 2 nights ago, but manages to get a win over Pete Dunne to advance in the finals of the tournament. Next week, Finley faces Braun Breaker in the finals and gets his rear end handed to him throughout most of the match before taking advantage of Breaker colliding with the ring post to regain momentum. At one point, Breaker bails to the outside, prompting Finley to roll him back in, but as the referee is paying attention to Breaker, Finley is attacked from behind by Bronson Reed, who hurls him into the steel ring steps, then powders before the official realizes his involvement. Finley manages to break up the count at 9, but immediately gets speared out of his boots for the loss. Bronson is seen heading back to his rental car with his luggage later, but Kathy Kelly catches up with him before he can leave. She asks what that was all about. Why did you attack David Finley just moments ago? Reed just smiles and says, you'll find out, but on our time, not yours. The next week on Raw, the Grayson Waller Effect hosts Bronson Reed to see if any more answers can be gleaned about the prior week's assault. But before Reed can say anything, Finley tries to charge the ring, only to be held back by extra security Grayson Waller hired to surround the ring in the event that something like this happened. As soon as they restrain him, Reed says that he may be the guest on the show, but he brought a guest of his own too, and casts a FaceTime call from his phone to the Titantron, which I'm going to pretend is a thing you can do. It's Sheamus. Hey, fella, it's me. I bet you're wondering why you're seeing my face on Raw, ain't you? See, we thought we'd taught you a lesson by having you exiled from Friday nights, but Survivor Series made it clear to me that you hadn't listened to anything we taught you. But then it dawned on me. We told you that you weren't truly Irish, but maybe we didn't make it quite clear enough what that meant. So let me try to hammer it into your head. Being Irish at its heart means to suffer and to come out the other side a warrior. And trust me, you will suffer. The call ends and Reed further explains, so my dear Davy boy, you see, the Black Velvet Band is no longer content with you being gone from SmackDown. They want you gone altogether. So they put a rather large bounty on your head, I intend to collect soon, but not now. Security? Security drags Finley away as the Aussie cackles menacingly while the show goes to a commercial break. Coming back from the break, Finley goes to Adam Pearce's office. He says he's going to collect on this bounty in his own time. I don't think so. I want him in the ring tonight. Can we make that happen? Pierce cocks his eyebrow and asks, "Are you sure about this?" Positive. Pierce makes the match, but his eyes clearly tell the audience he feels Finley is signing his own death warrant. Bronson Reed versus David Finley ends in disaster for Finley. Reed takes the early advantage and never really lets it go, save for a hope spot here and there. He demolishes Reed with 3 tsunamis to end it, and Finley is carried off in a stretcher. It's the last time we'll see him for 3 weeks, selling internal bleeding and bruised ribs from the beatdown. January 5th, Raw. Bronson Reed has a main event match for the United States Championship against new champion Braun Breaker. After about 13 minutes of big, meaty men slapping meat, Reed seems to have things in hand after throwing Breaker into the turnbuckles with a belly-to-belly suplex. He sets up for the tsunami, but David Finley's music hits, and the man himself comes out onto the stage in street clothes. He doesn't attack, but the distraction is enough for Breaker to throw him off the top rope, then hit a spear to retain his title. Afterwards, Finley grabs a chair and chases Reed out of the ring to end the show. Following week on Raw, Finley starts the show in the ring with a mic. While I was convalescing at home, rehabbing the injuries I sustained at the hands of Bronson Reed, I had a lot of time to reflect about things. And I came to a couple of conclusions. The first one is, and I want to look directly into the camera here because I know Sheamus and company are watching, and I want them to hear me when I say this. The Black Velvet Band were right about me. I realized only too late that I'd wanted to be here in WWE so badly that I was willing to sacrifice whatever I needed to do to get here, even if that meant leaning on my ethnicity as a crutch. I shouldn't have done that. I had no right to do that, and I apologize to those who found my pandering offensive. But it only came from my own insecurities, not any hateful place. That brings me to the other conclusion I came to. You see, while I have the Black Velvet Band to thank for waking me up, I also have them to blame for making my life a living nightmare for the past several months. I may have been naive, but they knew what they were doing the whole time. They schemed and they played their games and they went behind my back to get rid of me because they knew damn well their time was nearly up and that I was knocking on their door ready to take their spot here. They might have meant some of what they said about my behavior, but the reason they conspired against me was out of jealousy, nothing more. And that's a wrong I'm tired of enduring. That's a wrong I'm going to right myself. So I'm declaring my eligibility for the Royal Rumble in a few weeks, he explains, so that I can finally get my hands on them again and give them the ass whooping they've got coming. But first, Bronson Reed, we need to finish our little disagreement. So why don't you and I next week have us a little street fight? And we'll finish this before I go finish them. He throws down the mic on the mat, poses for the fans, and leaves. Later on, a brief backstage promo, Reed accepts his challenge, saying he'll finish the job he started a month ago and change his life forever. To me, though, it'll just be another Monday night. Next week on Raw, David Finley beats Bronson Reed in a street fight in around 18 minutes. It's a wild brawl that goes all over the arena before ending in the ring with Finley hitting a modified version of the no longer being called Irish sweepstakes on the open seats of 2 chairs facing each other. David Finley is among several superstars the next week that cut promos on why they're going to win the Royal Rumble this Saturday. Finley is the only one who doesn't mention winning a shot at the world title or going on to WrestleMania, instead reiterating his goals to beat the crap out of the members of the Black Velvet Band. At the Royal Rumble, David Finley comes in at number 25 with all 3 members of the Black Velvet Band in the ring, and he takes advantage of the others in the ring pairing off with them to get each member one-on-one. First eliminating McDonough, then Balor, then finally Sheamus, before being eliminated himself by eventual winner CM Punk. Following week on Raw, Kathy Kelly interviews Finley backstage and asks what's next for him now that he's finally gotten revenge on the Black Velvet Band. He says he's moving forward with his career and wants to focus on winning the United States Championship he was cheated out of the opportunity to challenge for, calling out Braun Breaker for a match for the belt. Following Friday on SmackDown, the Black Velvet Band is shown in Nick Aldis's office irate, swearing up and down that it's not fair and that Finley has to pay. Aldis says his hands are tied. The Royal Rumble is an interpromotional event, and what happens, happens. Sheamus tells him, I see what this is. This is just more anti-Irish oppression by an Englishman. It's not enough your lot subjugated mind for centuries. You've got to take it out on us now, too. Aldis protests, but the band storms out of his office in disgust before he can mollify them. Following Monday on Raw, Braun Breaker accepts Finley's challenge in a backstage promo, admitting that he saw the tape of what happened in their previous match, and it hadn't sit well with him that he won the title shot and subsequently the belt in a manner that cast any doubt on his worthiness. He wants to correct that mistake and will gladly accept Finley's challenge at Elimination Chamber. Following SmackDown, Sheamus and company beat 3 local wrestlers in quick fashion, then Sheamus gets on the stick. This is just disrespectful, he says. What kind of competition are you giving us here, Aldis? What, do you think we're not worthy of better competition? What's that all about, eh? And here, that's all I had written down. So we're going to get there. So, bullet points. On SmackDown, the band gets all up in arms about Aldis and claim that he's oppressing them or whatever. And so he feels like he needs a moderator to step in and figure stuff out for them because he's not being heard. And so maybe they'll listen to somebody higher up on the food chain than him. So at Elimination Chamber, they're going to have a sit down mediated conference. And the mediator is going to be Shane McMahon. Elsewhere on Raw, Finley and Braun Breaker have a friendly tag team match against 2 locals. They beat them up pretty easily, but are constantly competing over who can beat up the other guy better and more. The end comes when they both pin the same guy at the same time. They look at each other. At Elimination Chamber, Finley loses to Braun Breaker in a hotly contested match when McDonough comes in and screws him over. But this is after the conference where, much to everybody's chagrin, and it's a weird kind of thing, but Shane McMahon comes in and he's trying to do his thing where he's all like, oh, I'm Shane McMahon and everybody likes me. Yeah, the Black Velvet Band does not take that, and they beat him very badly, claiming the whole time that he's the fakest Irishman of them all. He's indicative of what they're all against. They threatened to throw him off the Titantron as a callback to the times where he did that on purpose. Unless they get what they want, and ultimately what they want is for Sheamus to get one last shot at David Finley at WrestleMania. The lead up to that, Finley is like, I'm done with you, but if you want to do this one last time, we can do it one last time. But I get to choose a stipulation. Sheamus is so pissed off that he agrees to anything. Ultimately, he makes it an I Quit match. So that's going to happen at night 2 at WrestleMania. Meanwhile, Lyra Valkyria is becoming increasingly dependent on the Black Velvet Band to retain her title this whole time. And eventually, it comes back around to Bayley getting the title shot at WrestleMania, having won the Royal Rumble for the 2nd year in a row. No, not in a row, but her 2nd time. She loses to Bayley at night 1 at WrestleMania when she refuses the Black Velvet Band's help. But later on is consoled by Becky Lynch, who is hosting WrestleMania. She's back there stage and said, you did what you had to do. And you know what? You and I have been through some battles, and I know who you are at your heart. You don't need them. You don't have anything to be ashamed of. And this whole thing you never seem to really be into anyway with the Black Velvet Band. I don't see why you hung around them in the first place. David Finley walks by in the back of the shot, not paying them any mind, but Lyra looks over her shoulder, pining. She's like, "Yeah, I know what you mean. Thanks, thanks, Becky." Night two happens, and it's an I Quit match. There are no DQs. Uh, David Finley is constantly beat on by all three of the members of the Black Velvet Band. It looks like he's just going to get completely wrecked until Lyra Valkyria comes out and makes the save, hitting McDonough and Balor both in the testicles with the shillelagh. To guarantee that they will not be a factor. After that, she tosses the shillelagh to him, to Finley, who bashes Sheamus in the head 3 times with it, and then using it as leverage in a clover leaf to make him quit. The following night on Raw, it all comes to an end when, because it's the Raw after Mania, everybody's kind of allowed. And Sheamus, the Intercontinental title was on the line for that too. So new champion David Finley comes out, and Sheamus tries to get a contract with him, or a rematch with him. But David Finley turns the tables like, "Hey, you remember that time that you put that clause in the contract where I had to leave SmackDown? Well, this I Quit match was an I Quit match for you. You saying I quit in the match means you quit WWE."
Oh.
And that's how you write him into retirement.
Oh my God. Okay.
And that's where it ends. So you make a new star, a couple of new stars really, with a David Finley and Lyra Valkyria. You bring them full circle on a whole thing. You write Sheamus's retirement and get him the Grand Slam in the process, which he needs. He doesn't need, but he deserves. You've got some commentary on what it means to identify with an ethnicity, and you've got him as with a song banished to the one show that has all the Aussies on it. That's why I put all the Aussies on one show.
All right. I like it, especially with the payoff. The payoff is good. The I Quit.
I did not realize it was going to take that long. I apologize so much. But I wanted to make a year-long thing because, that's how you build somebody. And that, the long-form storytelling is where it's at. So
mine could be told long form, but I definitely didn't put that much work into it.
I'm obsessive. Nobody has to be like me. I don't recommend it, in fact.
So mine, the basis of mine basically is I wanted to bring a wrestler back who I haven't seen in a while, who I really enjoyed, but I wanted him to have kind of a unique, maybe weird storyline, and then also do it in a place where it wouldn't normally be done, but could be played to still be cool in the way that the company normally is. So what it's based on is Katie and I watch a lot of cartoons. We watch a lot of cartoons. We watch like there are comfort shows, like if there's nothing, if we're just chilling on the couch next to each other, playing on our phones, we have a cartoon on in the background. American Dad, King of the Hill are like the top two, but we cycle through Cleveland Show, and Futurama is a big one for us. We love Futurama. So Futurama is kind of the basis of this storyline.
I dig it. Okay.
Now this is going to be kind of a sci-fi-ish storyline, which you would normally think let's put that in WWE because they already do kind of the weird stuff. They had the Undertaker forever. They have the Wyatt Six going on, which are kind of creepy in a weird way. Kind of supernatural, but not really. Normally you would do this stuff in WWE, but I want to do it in AEW just for a change in AEW's landscape a little bit. Just to
Okay.
say, we're the best wrestle, but hey, let's have a really cool angle inside we're the best wrestle. Where that's mostly based on an angle. I mean, the person I'm going to use is proficient in wrestling, very enough to be where he belongs in where the best wrestle. You could definitely make a case for him to be there, but not the type of angle that they would normally run in the company. So, to start it off, we'd be at some place like North Carolina or Chicago, someplace where they run one of the old buildings that is a technically a new arena on top of an old arena,
Like Greensboro or something.
yeah, like Greensboro or Cobo Hall, like where what's standing on
Okay.
Cobo Hall now or something like
Yeah.
that, where like the building is the original foundations are still kind of there. They're just buried underneath the building. So someone, I'm not sure who, maybe the conglomeration, because this might fit with them easily, are for some reason down in the bottom of the building. Maybe they're looking for Samoa Joe since he still hasn't come out of that wall or something. I don't know what they're looking for down there, but they're down there and they find a chamber, and the chamber has a date on one side that says like 1/1/1920 or something like that. And the other side is a countdown clock, and the countdown is at next week's Dynamite, we'll say. Now, I kind of wanted to happen on this week's Dynamite, but you have to build a little anticipation for it. But either way, once you have a bowel section of the building, that kind of gets transferred to every building that you go to. Ask Mankind.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. So they build a look-alike room, whatever. They put this chamber in it. The clock runs down, and out pops Aiden English from the Vaudevillains. Okay, and Aiden
Yes.
English is full on in wool tights and short boots and a tiny little championship belt, and he's talking like he's from the 1920s, and because he is. He got shoved into this chamber by Tesla or somebody that we'll use a famous scientist from the era or something like that. But he's shoved in this chamber by Tesla, and it was set for like 100 years. So maybe it says 1924 or something. So he shoved in there for 100 years. He pops out. He was the world's heavyweight champion. And now he's popped out, and it's suddenly 2024, and he's in a wrestling company in 2024. Wool tight, short boots, tiny belt, whole nine. He can talk the way he talks already. He can pretty much wear the same gear he's already wearing. I mean, he fits this gimmick. So he is basically our Philip J. Fry. He has been frozen for 1,000, and now he is going to have to come to live and assimilate and operate within a completely alien environment to him. So it's basically going to be like a big fish out of water thing. Except for mine, I mean, we're going to go fish out of water. You can pretty much make any conjectural assumption you want to about the in between time from debut to payoff, where oh my God, why are your title belts so fucking huge? Or like this is my world championship belt. And then, like here's, like Omega standing next to him with his, and he's like, but this is a world title belt, like, and or what is catering? We didn't have that, like just all the little shit that they wouldn't have had at a circus in 1924 for the wrestling sideshow that they were doing. What do you mean $100,000 a year type stuff? Like just basically anything. Even promo. Well, that's where you cut, like, Renee explaining to him, like, this is where you stand here and we're going to talk. I'm going to ask you questions, like everything, like everybody being nice to him. RJ City sits him down for AEW and he just doesn't get it, but it still makes amazing because RJ City would make it amazing. So, like just all that, just all the fish out of water tropes, basically. But here's the payoff, all right. In my fantasy world, Kenny Omega is a face AEW world champion. Okay. Because I
Okay.
love Kenny Omega and I don't like booing him. And he's so good at being a heel that I have to boo him when he's a heel because he's very hateable. But I love him as a face. Get well soon, Kenny Omega. I hope you're back soon.
Absolutely.
Um, so anyway, in this storyline, we're into 2025 now. Kenny Omega is the world heavyweight champion at AEW. He's a face. He's taking on the Young Bucks and Jack Perry kind of as a trios thing. And he's had an ever rotating set of partners, a couple guys from the conglomeration here and there, maybe Private Party at one point. He's had the Acclaimed, he's rotating partners, nobody real steady. But then he brings in Simon Gotch because he's like, I know who I want to be my partner, but I have to figure out how to make him and I work really well together. So I need a bridge. So he decides he wants Frozen guy, Aiden English, to be his partner, and he needs a third guy. So he brings in Simon Gotch to be the bridge because he's like, this is the old schoolest guy that I know that isn't, literally old or dead. So bring him in. He's going to be my bridge between Aiden and I to conglomerate our styles in such a way that we work effectively as a trio and can beat the Young Bucks and Jack Perry at All In this year. The run up to that is the Young Bucks and Jack Perry saying, we innovated wrestling since his time. We have literally changed the business in such a way that this man could not be on your team and y'all win. It's impossible. You have like he thinks a cartwheel is amazing. There's no effing way that this guy is gonna, come in and do anything to us. Like, if he was wrestling Gorgeous George in 1950, maybe, blah, blah, just the whole thing, right? So then we get to All In. All right. This whole time they're picking the whole run up, they're picking on him like that the whole run up. And the whole time, Kenny Omega and Simon Gotch are trying, like, training segments and all this other stuff, trying to bring his wrestling skills into the 21st century. And they're doing the thing, and like finally, right before All In, probably the Dynamite or maybe the Rampage before, and just like a little like 30-second clip. They're maybe sitting together, and he's just like, you know what? I get it. I finally understand, and they're okay. And the Bucks, of course, maybe a response segment. Ha ha. Yeah, he doesn't understand. It doesn't matter. We're gonna beat you two and the ancient old Frozen guy. We're gonna beat you in Encino Man or Philip J. Fryer, whatever they want to
Yeah.
call it. I mean, they could go 100 ways with it, but we're gonna win. Get to All In. Bucks make their entrance with Jack Perry. They do the whole elite thing. They get the whole Carry On My Wayward Son. Because as much as I hate them, I love it every time I hear that song on a wrestling show.
Yeah.
So they get the
It's a
Carry
great
On My.
song.
They do it specifically to piss off Kenny because that's a thing they do with Kenny. So they do it with Jack, and they
Yeah.
put Jack in Kenny's place, and they do Carry On My Wayward Son, and just an antagonistic entrance, right? Then Simon Gotch, Aiden English, and Kenny Omega make their entrance, and Kenny Omega comes out first, and they do the whole North Carolina and all that, the big Kenny Omega entrance. And then his music continues to play, and Aiden English and Simon Gotch show up, and they're dressed exactly like Kenny Omega, painted tights, flashy boots, like the whole they look like 21st century wrestlers. I mean, like maybe there's a little throwback, like maybe his tights are painted to look like they're like the wool with the different legs than the trunks or whatever. But you could
He's
tell like
wearing a bad wig.
yeah, maybe a bad wig, but but you could tell like Kenny took them to buy work clothes or whatever,
Yeah.
like so they did totally in there, and then they get in the ring with these guys and have a match to the ability that we know the three of those guys have versus three people like the Bucks and Jack Perry, and that's how they blow it off. Like he's gotten it, and so at the end of the year long or half a year cycle to All In, he's assimilated. We
Mhm.
can go, we can then progress because this will the fish out of water thing, and just like the vaudevillains did, it will eventually run its course. and people will tire of it in a way, like a you got to go
Yeah.
away, you got to change, or you got to go away point.
Yeah.
We will come to that, but then you blow it off it all in, and then he can move forward from there. He can get his own tights or whatever after that point. The whole point was to show an assimilation level at the end of that. And then, then he goes on and you've created a guy who's gotten a rub from Kenny Omega and the Bucks by, possibly maybe he pins Jack Perry in the match or something like that. But he's gotten the rub and you can send him up or actually you can send him up. You can give him a few months and then you can bring him and Gotch back as the Vaudevillains, which will get a huge nostalgia pop. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of ways to play the after, but the big one is the, fish out of water all the way up to this point, and then he assimilates. And the assimilation is a big surprise. Like he does say at some point, like maybe in a very small segment on a rampage, we want to make sure that like I don't want to knock AEW's viewership at all, but like we want to make sure the least amount of people see it as possible. If it is on TV, that he is
Yeah.
snapped into getting it, and then have the surprise entrance where oh my god, he looks like Kenny Omega.
Might as
And
well just do it online then.
yeah, maybe yeah, okay, yeah, like a Twitter interview or something. Like yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, that was basically it. Like, guy gets frozen in the 1920s. He's the world heavyweight champion. He pops out in 2024, and we kind of get a live comparison of the differences between the beginnings of the business and now, as well as a really great fish out of water story with kind of a sci-fi niche in a place where they don't normally do things like that. But because we're going to involve the elite and Kenny Omega, it's going to get the proper attention and rub that it would
I mean, they
work.
came out as Ghostbusters once. I think it's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. That's why I choose that group of guys because like there's a lot of people out there, even guys in AEW who are way too on the cornet bend where they won't do silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
But some of the best wrestlers in the world, like Kenny, will do the silliest shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna
Because
knock him for it. That's Kenny.
because
That's
they're
just who he
yeah.
is.
It's because they're good enough that they know that they can be taken seriously again. Like
Yeah.
they can it's a level of confidence in one's ability that you need to have. Like the people who don't want to go do that are wicked insecure.
Yeah,
Like
I think so
it,
too.
I mean to a like if it was under Vince, yeah, I see it because he'll pigeonhole you.
Yeah.
But like, every once in a while the fans want to see some personality out of you that you can have fun, especially I mean, not so much with the heels. I think you don't do that with heels at all because you want them to be booed. You don't want people to identify with them if you can avoid it. But yeah, with baby faces, people want to see them having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
I
one of
you
the
know
reasons I got so tired of Mox. It's like, oh, like
he's always
can
so
you show a
serious.
little humanity, please? Like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, a perfect example of this, especially as it relates to Moxley and how he could change to maybe incorporate something like that, is Randy Orton. He's a perfect example of this
Yeah,
because Randy Orton is a bad motherfucker. Like we know it. He's built the equity.
yeah,
Like if you're being challenged by Randy, like people could say all day, we knew he wasn't going to beat Gunther, at Bash in Berlin. But with the way WWE books things, sometimes they could have totally made Gunther go down in his hometown and had Randy Orton win,
yeah,
and it would have been believable because it's Randy Orton. But also, he's often shown being a mischievous little shit and having fun with
it's
things
true.
like that sly. Everybody's seen that sly Randy Orton grin. If you've watched enough of him at all, you've
Yeah,
seen the sly and you've seen the mischievous actions that come thereafter. And part of the reason why he's called the Viper and the Predator and all that, the Apex Predator and all that, is because he's kind of a mischievous little shit, and he'll get you when you least expect it. If Mox could add a little bit of Randy Orton to his repertoire and maybe take off that seriousness edge a little bit. But that's honestly about him. What's wearing me out is like you're always so and like a
yeah.
badass, and you never sell, and
So dour.
like I mean, yeah, cool, bro. Like thank you for not bleeding every chance you get anymore. I really do appreciate
Yeah.
that. But like, and then I
Sure,
respect the
Renee
man.
appreciates it too.
I'm sure she does. I respect the man as a wrestler. He is a great wrestler,
Yeah.
but my
His
God,
character
man,
needs a refresh though, and his
yeah,
presentation needs a refresh.
yeah,
I'm sorry, guys, that we went back to to harp on this. I didn't mean to just go back and harp
No,
on
I didn't
wrestling,
want to either, but it'll happen
but
sometimes.
no, back on topic though. No, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. You know why I love it is for all the reasons that you said, but also because I really do believe that wrestling can be anything. Wrestling can be
Yes.
anything.
Mhm.
The only thing stopping wrestling from being anything are two things: budget, which is a
Yeah.
concern, and the willingness of an audience to buy in.
Yeah.
But you can get around the first if you have the second.
That's true.
So, like
Yeah.
if you have the faith of your fans that they're willing to suspend their disbelief and willing to buy into what you're selling, then you can get away with a lot. You can get away with tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, wrestling can be presented one way in one company, and that'd be the only way, and that's fine. You can have the other way. You can go the other way and have it be the smorgasbord, a little bit of everything, and that's
Hmm.
great too. There is room in wrestling for weirdness. One of my favorite wrestlers is Danhausen. Like
Yeah. I love Danhausen.
he Danhausen's fantastic. All honestly, I would be content if for the rest of his days in the wrestling business, he did literally nothing but show up every once in a while and curse somebody, have it work, and then leave. I don't care about seeing him wrestle. I care about him getting paid. I care about seeing him and having him do his shtick, his very nice, very evil shtick, and getting paid. That's all I care about.
That
There
being
is
said, Tony
room
Khan booked Danhausen.
for real. For real. I miss Danhausen.
Book Danhausen versus Tony or versus Ricky Starks. I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll
I
take
will
it because
definitely
of
take it.
just the two of them. But yeah, I mean, make Ricky Starks beat Danhausen so many times that he becomes evil Danhausen.
Yeah,
Like,
very
hey,
evil
oh,
Danhausen.
very evil Danhausen. Get Ricky Starks a mouthful of teeth once or twice, and then put him
Yeah,
over. Keep it going. Like,
yeah,
I'll take both of them back on TV over
yeah.
some of the things I'm seeing. Learning Tree. Yeah.
Point being
Anyway, yeah,
is that there is room for wrestling for all different kinds of characters, and it doesn't need to be so restricted to one box. There's
yeah.
room for total. I mean, this that was the point of this exercise. Really, was to come up with something outside the box. You
Mm-hmm.
absolutely did that.
Right.
I love the reference. I love the direction. I love the people involved in it. Loved me the vaudevillains. I was a huge vaudevillains fan.
Dude, I'm a
I was
huge
I was
Vaudevillains mark. That's
big
why.
big guy, big theater guy. So it obviously spoke to my aesthetic. Um, but and the the things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fantastic.
Heck yeah.
That was great. That was great. It was probably a little too long. Sorry, guys, but that's mostly my fault. That's
It's
in fact,
all
it's all
good.
my fault.
This
It's
is
all my fault.
this is still my favorite segment of the week.
Oh,
Uh,
Adam can't shut up. Oh, that's new.
well, that's why we're on a podcast because we can't shut up about wrestling. So
It's true.
that's
It's
kind of
true.
a, isn't it? I mean,
Got a point. Yeah.
heck yeah. All right. Well,
Luckily,
thank
you'll be
you.
able to get this split up into clips on YouTube. So,
Oh yeah, it'll be easy. It'll be easy. Well, I mean, this whole segment will be one clip, but it'll be easy anyway. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us this week. That was the Spark Foundation podcast, and we will be back right here next Monday to cover all of this week's AEW and WWE action. You guys be safe. Remember to love one another, and as Simon might say, goofy wrestling for life.
for life.